Friends, today is Thursday, the 18th of June. We're back in the cathedral, beautiful morning, and once again the light streaming through our windows. And today we come to the Lord's Prayer. We've been reading from the Gospel of Matthew, and in particular the Sermon on the Mount. In the very middle of that sermon, if you were to lay that sermon out by verses, so in the very center would be the Lord's Prayer. And Matthew intended that. And thus it tells us to pay close attention. This is important, the Lord's Prayer. We're in a section of the sermon in which Jesus speaks to us of our attitude towards spiritual practices, our attitude also towards material goods, and we'll get into that shortly, but our spiritual practices. Yesterday we heard about fasting and almsgiving, when you fast, when you give alms. And today is when you pray. When you pray, it says, do not babble like the pagans. I love that phrase, do not babble. In other words, keep things simple. Just get to the point. You don't have to go on and on. The pagans used all sorts of incantations to grab the attention of the deity. We don't need to do that. God already knows what we need, what we want. But yet he wants to hear it. It's like the parent, a father, let's say, of a child. Let's say back in the days when you would kneel down at your bed before going to sleep and you're praying with your child and you ask your child, well, what would you like to pray for? And they want to pray for their cat or their dog, Fluffy, or maybe Uncle Joe, who needs a job, or for Grandma, who's not feeling well. Keep it simple. Those are the sorts of things we want to hear. A father wants to hear those, and God wants to hear those as well. So we keep it simple. One phrase I think is important to point out in the Lord's Prayer is, on earth as it is in heaven. On earth as it is in heaven. Your kingdom come, your will be done. In other words, heaven and earth are not two different dimensions, or not rather, two different poles. They are two dimensions, but they're not the opposite of each other. They're constantly intermingling with each other, even as Jesus is divine and human. So is the heaven and earth constantly intermingling. We want that rule of God to be present with us, that God will be all in all. We look forward to that day, the day of the kingdom. And finally, at the end of the reading, kind of a controversial line, lead us not into temptation. Best not to kind of pull that apart too much. It simply means get us through trials. Get us through these trials, the trial of the pandemic that we're all going through. Lord, get us through. Get us to the other side. Help us during these times. We refer to God as Father, our Father, because we are his children, and we share the intimacy as children with Jesus himself. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.